The Freemasons. In Nigeria, they are called lodge members. What is Freemasonry? Depending on who you ask, the answer will vary. As we describe it, Freemasonry is a system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. Simply put, Freemasonry uses stories from the Bible as allegories to teach morality in a fashion that uses the symbolism of tools used by builders to mold and shape good men to be better people in society. The basic tenets of Freemasonry are brotherly love, relief, and truth. We are a charitable organization. Our main aim is to provide charity for those in need in any society we are in. In June 1992, when Freemasonry celebrated the 275th anniversary of the formation of Grand Lodge of England, Freemasons from all over the world came out in celebration to show the world that our charity knows no bounds.
June the 10th, 1992, and the huge arena of the Earl's Court Exhibition Centre in London is filled with the voices of 12,000 Freemasons. They're attending a regular quarterly meeting of the United Grand Lodge of Ancient, Free and Accepted Masons of England. But today, there's a difference. Masons have come from throughout the United Kingdom and all over the world to celebrate the 275th anniversary of the foundation of the Grand Lodge of England in June 1717, and the 25th anniversary of the installation of His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent as Grand Master. Among the thousands here today are representatives from most of the 117 Grand Lodges recognized by the Grand Lodge of England. And in a sense of pride and confidence in showing Masonry at work, there are lady guests, television, radio, and the press. Already we've seen some of the Masonic drama as Grand Lodge assembled. The Duke of Kent was to preside over what was probably the most representative gathering of Freemasons ever to come together in one place. And the voice of one visiting Grand Master, the most worshipful Brother Edgar Darling of the Grand Lodge of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, was to capture its significance.
We have traveled from the far reaches of the earth to revisit the birthplace of our fraternity, where 275 years ago, brethren gathered together in peace and harmony and conceived a fraternity whose high ideals and principles are still practiced to this day. Although we come from many countries with diverse backgrounds, we share one thing in common. We are all Masons and strictly adhere to the tenets of our profession. Masons are movers and shakers, dreamers and builders, and above all, we are free thinkers. Let us all rededicate ourselves to the principles of our fraternity.
No Masonic lodge can conduct its business without the volume of the sacred law, the Bible in the English Constitution, and the square and compasses in place. And today, the oldest lodges in England, the time immemorial lodges, had their duty.
I thank you for bringing the volume of the sacred law. Let it be placed upon the pedestal.
Most worshipful Grand Master, I present to you the square and compasses, the other great lights in Masonry. by which Masons regulate their lives and actions and keep themselves in due bounds with all mankind.
I thank you for bringing the square and compasses. Let them now be placed on the volume of the sacred law.
The regular meetings of private lodges mirror the larger Grand Lodge ceremonial. It is here that all Masonic careers begin, and where millions of Masons throughout the world are initiated into the craft and thereafter join in the ceremonies. But why do they join? And who are they, these Masons?
Provided he believes in God and he's got a good reputation, anybody, any man, they come in generally 21 and upwards. They have to be recommended by 2 friends. But apart from that, our catchment area is as wide as you like. They join mostly because they think they're going to enjoy it. Once they're in, Freemasonry will strike a man in all sorts of different ways. And that's, well, again, one of the great attractions of it, that if you're an amateur dramatician, you've got one sort of fun out of it, and if you like doing charity work, raising money or looking after people, it's another sort. You can administer things. And with it all, there's a society of men of a like inclination and like experience.
Now, you require a belief in God. How does that work over the whole world?
It means that we've found a common denominator which brings people together who otherwise wouldn't meet. It means that any sort of religion, respectable religion, like Christians and Jews and Hindus and Muslims, can meet together in a lodge, and they find out what they've got in common. They're encouraged to do that rather than to emphasize what's different. And we don't discuss religion, but we know we've all got one, and so it becomes part of our common background.
Is Freemasonry a religion then?
No. Freemasonry is not a religion at all. Freemasonry is the first step in spirituality. Religion discriminates. Please follow what I'm saying. Religion discriminates. Freemasonry does not. For instance, our outgoing district grandmaster is a Muslim. He's an Alhaji. You cannot find that kind of thing in the church, and you cannot find it in Islamic religion. So it does not segregate. It brings everybody together.
While Masons are required to believe in God and their ceremonies include prayers, Freemasonry is not a religion or a substitute for a religion. It offers no sacraments and has no theological doctrines. In churches throughout the country this year, Masons gave thanks for 275 years of United Grand Lodge, founded on the 24th of June, St. John's Day, in 1717.
In the English Constitution, yes, we use the Bible as our volume of the sacred law, and that symbolizes God under whichever denomination people think of him. But when a man comes to take his obligation on the volume of the sacred law, he uses the book that matters to his religion. And so you get the Quran being used by a Muslim and so on.
For an association to have such laudable ideals, how come there is so much negative feelings about it on the outside?
Well, people started having negative views about Freemasonry comparatively short time ago. Until then, there was no preconceived negative idea about Freemasonry. When we were being ruled by the white people, they accepted what we are doing because they brought it to us. The white men brought Freemasonry to us, same as they brought the Christianity. It's two different things entirely, you know. But people got all these funny ideas because they don't know what they are talking about. Freemasonry has been in existence in Nigeria over 100 years ago. Not once has anyone been arrested but because he's a Mason or because he's doing something evil being a Mason. It's just a way to give the dog a bad name so as to be able to hang it.
Freemasonry takes a candidate through several stages of teachings in life. We use the working tools of Masons to teach morality in the form of storytelling.
I now present to you the working tools of an entered apprentice Freemason. They are the 24-inch gauge, the common gavel.
The first point in Freemasonry is the belief that God is the architect of the universe. To this end, we humans aspire to be his Masons here on earth, the builders. This is why the working tools of practicing Masons are important in our teachings.
We apply these tools to our morals. In this sense, the 24-inch gauge represents 24 hours of a day, part to be spent in prayer to Almighty God, part in labor and refreshment, and part in serving a brother or a friend in a time of need without detriment to ourselves or our connections. The common gavel represents a force of conscience that should keep down all vain and unbecoming thoughts which might obtrude in any of the aforementioned periods, such that our thoughts and actions may ascend unpolluted to the throne of grace. The chisel points out the advantage of education, by which means alone we're rendered fit members of regularly organized society.
The square is to try and adjust rectangular corners of buildings and to assist in bringing road matters into due form. The level is to lay levels and prove horizontals. The plumb rule is to try and adjust uprights while fixing them on the proper basis. But as we are not all operative Masons, but are free and accepted or speculative, we apply these tools to our morals. In this sense, the square teaches morality, the level equality, and the plumb rule justness and uprightness of lives and actions. Thus, by square conduct, level step, and upright intentions, we hope to ascend those immortal mansions whence all goodness emanates.
To Freemasons, these working tools are meant to remind us in our daily lives how to relate to others whom we may come into contact with. The working tools are explained in our peculiar manner to the candidate in such a way that he learns different aspects of Freemasonry over the course of several months, before he finally becomes a Master Mason.
Having entered the solemn obligation of a Master Mason, you are now entitled to demand that last and greatest trial, of which alone you can be admitted to the participation of this degree. But it is my duty to call your attention to a retrospect of those several degrees in Freemasonry through which you have already passed, the better to enable you to distinguish our whole system and the relative dependency of its several parts. Your entrance among Masons in a state of helpless indigence was an emblematic representation of the entrance of all men on this mortal existence. It inculcated the useful lesson of natural equality and mutual dependence. It instructs you on the active principle of beneficence and charity, to seek the solace of your own distress by extending relief to your fellow creatures at their time of affliction. And above all, It taught you how to bend with humility and resignation to the will of the great architect of the universe, to dedicate your heart, thus purified from any malignant and baneful passion, fitted only to receive the truth and wisdom to the welfare of your fellow mortals.
This candidate is now in the 3rd degree. He is now a Master Mason, as we call it. At this stage, the working tools of a Master Mason are recited and explained to him. It is here that he learns his relationship with keeping the will of God and living his life the way God has ordained for all men.
As we are not all operative Masons, but rather free and accepted or speculative, we apply these tools to our morals. In this sense, this carrot points out that straight and undeviating line of conduct laid down for our pursuit in the volume of the Sacred Law. The pencil teaches us that our words and actions are observed and recorded by the Almighty Architect, to whom we must give an account of our conduct through life. The compasses reminds us of his unerring and impartial justice, who, having defined for our instruction the limits of good or evil, will reward or punish as we have obeyed or disregarded his divine commands. Thus, the working tools of a Master Mason teach us to bear in mind and act according to the law of our divine Creator, that when we may be summoned from this sublunary abode, we may ascend to the grand lodge above, where the world great architect lives and reigns forever.
Freemasonry is founded on the fundamental principles of brotherly love, relief, and truth. The greatest and perhaps most important part of Freemasonry is relief for the afflicted. Masonry believes all men are created equal before God. We teach the new Mason, whom we call the entered apprentice, in our own peculiar way, to remember his obligations of charity at all times. And from the foundation laid this evening, may you raise a superstructure perfect in its parts and honorable to the builder. You now stand to all external appearance a just and upright Mason, and I give it to you in strong terms of recommendation ever to continue and act as such. Indeed, I shall immediately proceed to put your principles in some measure to the test, by calling upon you to exercise that virtue which may justly be denominated the distinguishing characteristic of a Freemason's heart. I mean charity. I need not here dilate on its excellencies. No doubt it has often been felt and practiced by you. Suffice it to say, it has the approbation of heaven and earth, and like its sister, mercy, blesses him who gives as well as him who receives. In a society so widely extended, of course, we know that at this point, this brother has nothing at all to give.
Have you anything to give in the cause of charity?
But the lesson he learns here will hopefully ever remind him of the time when he had none to give, and constantly remind him of his obligation to the rest of mankind, who may need his assistance. Freemasonry is particularly strict about obedience to the moral code, and especially the laws of God and good society. Masons are charged never to be involved in conspiracies which may destabilize the well-being of any country or society they may live in.
As the citizens of the world, I am to enjoin you to be exemplary in the discharge of your civil duties by never proposing or at all countenancing any act that may have the tendency to subvert the peace and good order of society, by paying due obedience to the laws of the country of that state, which for a time may become your place of residence and afford you its protection, and above all, by never losing sight of the allegiance due to the sovereign of your native land, ever remembering that nature has implanted in your breast a sacred and indissoluble attachment to that country whence you derived your birth and infant nurture.
As an individual, let me recommend the practice of every domestic as well as public virtue. Let prudence direct you, temperance chasten you, fortitude support you, and justice be the guide of all your actions. Be especially careful to maintain in their fullest splendour those truly Masonic ornaments which have already been amply illustrated: benevolence and charity.
There are several charges in Freemasonry. All of these charges are meant to instill the love of God, country, and your fellow creatures.
Forcibly impress upon them the dignity and high importance of Masonry. Seriously admonish them never to disgrace it. Charge them to practice out of the lodge those duties that have been taught within it, and by virtuous, amiable, and discreet conduct, prove to the world the happy and beneficial effects of our ancient institution, so that when anyone is said to be a member of it, the world may know is one to whom the burdened heart may pour forth his sorrows, to whom the distressed may prefer their suit, one whose hand is guided by justice and whose heart is expanded by benevolence. In fine, worshipful master, by strict observance of the bylaws of your lodge, the constitutions of Masonry, and above all, the use of the sacred writings which are given to us as a rule and guide to our faith, you may be enabled to lay up a crown of joy and rejoicing, which will continue when time with you shall be no more.
And may the principles and tenets of our profession, which are founded on the basis of religious truth and virtue, teach us to guide our actions by the rule of rectitude, square our conduct by the principles of morality, and guide our inclinations and even our thoughts within the compass of propriety. Hence, we learn to be meek, humble, and resigned, to be faithful to God, our country, and our laws, to drop a tear of sympathy for the feelings of a brother, and to pour the healing balm of consolation into the bosom of the afflicted.
You are sufficiently acquainted with the principle of Masonry to prevent any mistrust that will be found wanting in the discharge of the duties of your respective offices. Suffice it to say that what you observe praiseworthy in order, you should carefully imitate, and what in them may appear defective, you should in yourself amend. You are to be a good example of good order and regularity, for it is by paying due obedience to our laws in our own conduct that we may reasonably expect compliance with them from others.
All our workings are recited from memory. This is one of the ways Freemasons develop their minds, by working hard to memorize long verses. The only person allowed to use the book in the lodge is the Director of Ceremonies, and this is to ensure that Masons do not formulate their own interpretations, should they perchance forget some of the working. We are not allowed to make any changes or innovation in the workings. There are rumors that we have rituals. What are they?
There is no ritual as such. Everything in this world has to do with rituals. You sleep and wake up, it's a bit of ritual. So there is nothing peculiar about our rituals at all.
Some people think we carry various mysterious objects in our little cases.
We put in all these paraphernalia. Yes, we put in our robes, our gauntlets, aprons and all that. There is nothing so special in that box than what you have seen.
What we carry in the cases are regalia, which you see me wearing. This is what we keep.
Freemasonry is especially particular about giving assistance whenever you are able to do so, without detriment to yourself.
Freemasonry has been concerned with charity from its earliest days. often towards its own needy, but now more and more with help to non-Masonic organizations.
My name is Mrs. Jean Obi. I'm the coordinator of this center, and I'm also a trustee of Niger Wives. Niger Wives is an association of non-Nigerians married to Nigerians who are resident here. And this project, this Niger Wives Braille Center, is a charity project of Niger Wives Nigeria. Our mission is to provide educational services to the visually impaired to enable them to become independent adults who can take their place in the community, in work environments, just the same as any sighted person. The Freemasons, when they asked us what we would like, we said we needed some more computers. The computers we were using here then were old computers that did not function very well. So we badly needed some new computers. And so the Freemasons gave us these 3 computer units. They gave us a scanner, which is essential for visually impaired using the computer. And they also gave us a laptop.
There is a scanner, which was also donated to us. This helps the blind person gain access to print material. Like, if you ask me to read it with all my degree, I can't read it because I don't have my sight. So I need all these pieces of equipment, which is very cheap, to read, to help me gain access to the document. So for blind people working in big offices and all that, when the bosses give them documents like that, they can insert them into the scanner and have them read. I can also go to the street and buy a newspaper. So if you see me buy a newspaper, don't ask me what I'm going to do with it as a blind man, because I also want to read. So if I come to the office, I put that into the scanner, start the process of having it scanned, and my computer will read the document to me. That's very, very interesting, because it's like you having your sight.
To mark the 275th anniversary, the Grand Charity and the Masonic Trust for Girls and Boys are together making grants of £1.75 million to charity cottage and rural enterprises to establish a community at Roud in Wiltshire for adults with a mental handicap. The Grand Master dedicated the community's foundation stone.
Let the stone be unearthed.
And the house, when it was in building, was built of stone made ready before it was brought thither, so that there was neither hammer, nor axe, nor any tool of iron heard in the house, while it was in building.
As the temple of King Solomon was built of stones already prepared in the quarries, which fitted perfectly together when they were brought to the site, so may this stone, which I dedicate here to universal benevolence and charity, take its place and fit perfectly among the buildings of cottage and rural enterprises, Jubilee Community at Road in Wiltshire, for the happiness of those who will live there, and to the glory of the great architect of the universe.